Hello, what's up guys? Hon MMA 13 here, back with another video. We've had a bit of a break from the UFC, but we're back, and we're back with the final pay-per-view of the year. UFC 310, Pantoja versus Asakura, and we're going to kick right off straight into the main card. Starting with Nate Landwehr versus Doo-Hoo Choi, the Korean Superboy. Now, Doo Choi's coming off a win. He beat Bill Algier in the second round with punches, with a hook. Um, he looked good in that fight. He was fighting someone who can be good. You know, Bill Algier's had some decent performances in the UFC. He's usually quite durable, so finishing him in the second round's definitely impressive. Um, and Nate Landwehr's coming off a knockout win in the first round against Jamal Emmers. That was also a strike because he finished him. Um, I'm looking forward to this fight. I think it's a good main card kickoff. I'm surprised it's on the main card if I'm being honest, but I suppose if it was a fight night, it'd probably be on, the top maybe second fight, the third featured fight maybe. So it's not too bad. I mean, it's decent, but I feel like this card is a bit hit and miss. But this fight's going to be one of the exciting ones on the card. I think that Nate Landwehr's advantages lie with the fact that he can be quite durable. So if he can, get into a war similar to the one he got in, I know he was on the losing side of it, but that fight with Danny Ige, he, showed a lot of heart in that fight. And Danny Ige's winner is a top fighter who can give anyone problems. He gave Diego Lopez problems. I know it was on short notice, but I think Doo-Hoo Choi has got the bigger upside. He has had some questionable performances. He got finished by Charles Jourdain back in 2019, I believe, but he's become a lot better fighter. He's getting active again. This is going to be his second fight in a year, which is actually quite impressive when it comes to Doo-Hoo Choi, because he's not been active at all over the years, but he's clearly wanting to get more active. And I feel like Nate Landwehr, is just one of those guys who's going to give anyone a tough fight. And, I don't think he's ever going to be a top 10 fighter, but he's definitely going to be in the top 20. And he's always going to give people in that fringe top 15 area a really tough fight. But I am going to pick Doo-Hoo Choi simply because just stylistically I think he's the better striker. Nate Landwehr, however, has shown some good wrestling in some of his previous fights and some of his victories. But I think that Doo-Hoo Choi is just too good on the feet. I don't think Nate Landwehr is going to be able to get on the inside and hurt him and get him down to the ground. I just don't see it happening because Nate Landwehr doesn't like to use his wrestling straight away. He likes to wear you down and then he gets the takedowns. I feel like if he's fighting a slick striker who's got the movement, the footwork, he's not going to be able to get the fight where he wants it. So I'm going to go with Doo-Hoo Choi, and I think Nate Landwehr is a tough motherfucker. So I don't think he's going to get finished. I think it's going to be a decision. I think it's going to be a good fight, possibly one of the fights of the night, and it's going to be I'll say a 30-27 decision, but like a good 30-27 decision for Choi. Not like where he's just dominated every second, every minute. I feel like it's going to be close, but a clear 3-round victory for Doo-Hoo Choi. So there you go. Moving on. To fight number 2 on the main card, Bryce Mitchell versus Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie, he's like the embarrassment of the Gracie family. He's like the Abubakar Magomedov of the Gracie family. Like, he's just not good. I mean, I was watching one of the Gracies on a PFL card a few months ago. It was the Loughnane Camacho card, one of the PFL tournament events, and he had good striking. He was tough. This guy, I can't remember his name. It was a Gracie fighter, a Gracie brother, one of the family. But then you watch Kron Gracie, and he just doesn't have anything. He doesn't have the offensive wrestling. He doesn't have the grappling on the feet, like against the fence. He's more just like he doesn't know how to get the fight where he wants it. It's unbelievable that he's in the UFC, and he can strike as far as, like, he has a jab, so you can't go too hard in on him. He has got a jab, he has got kicks, leg kicks. That is not, he ain't gonna be throwing any spinning wheel kicks, but he's got fundamentals, but he just hasn't got that it factor where he's going to be dangerous in any form in the UFC. at any kind of decent level. And Bryce Mitchell's got offensive wrestling. He's got, even against Ilya Taparia, people forget, man. People forget that against Ilya Taparia, when Mitchell fought him at 282, he actually had moments in that fight, Mitchell, where he had Ilya like in some trouble on the floor. He got Ilya down in that fight, and Ilya's a no slouch of grappling. He's very impressive as a grappler and a wrestler, and he's strong and low center of gravity. So Mitchell's a top level fighter, man. He's beaten fucking a lot of good fighters. He's beat Edson Barboza. Um he beat Dan Ige. People, man, I'm frustrated because people don't give Bryce Mitchell enough credit. He's one of my favourite fighters. He got chinned by Josh Emmett. You know, people are gonna be worried, but Josh Emmett could chin anyone if he catches them. And I know he's coming off that knockout, but he's had enough time out. He hadn't done a Volk and been a fuck idiot. He's been smart. He's took the time out. He's took a year out. Sorry for the hand movements. Donald Trump. Trendy Aragua. But yeah, I think it's going to be a win for our mate Bryce Mitchell. I think he's going to get it done. I think he's going to be able to just dominate in the first round. He's probably going to be able to, if I'm being honest with you, finish Cron here. I don't think it's going to come by submission because he's a great jiu-jitsu player, but I think it's going to be by ground and pound strikes. I think he's going to be better in the wrestling transitions as far as the grappling transitions as far as strength. I don't think Gracie's going to get submitted. I think he's too smart for that. But I think he's going to get ground and pounded to oblivion. I think Mitchell's going to take that aggression he's been feeling the past year out, and we're going to see the most vicious Bryce Mitchell performance we've seen. So second round stoppage due to ground and pound and Kron Gracie being cut. Moving on. Great fight, this next one. Featured fight. Cyril Gane, El Gammon, fucking El Gammon, yeah, versus our good guy Volkov, Alexander. I like to say his name backwards because he's from that area of the world where they do that. I think Alexander Volkov is so good. I do think that people criticise the heavyweight division as having no one who's got all-round skills apart from people like Curtis Blades maybe and Tom Aspinall. Alexander Volkov's one of my favourite heavyweights in UFC history. He's so tall that you'd think that he's just uncoordinated, but he actually has really decent striking these days. And he also does something that a lot of heavyweights don't do. He works against the fence. He throws shots. He don't just stand there and try and wear on you and lean on you. He actually does some good work against the fence with knees and shots to the body. And he's just a really good all-round heavyweight. And I think if he was in any other era, he'd probably be easily title shot worthy. But I feel like because there's people in this division, such as John Jones, Tom Aspinall, people call this a weak heavyweight division, but I feel like, even when you look back years ago, it was Brock Lesnar, Cain Velasquez, Mark Hunt. Who else was good? Obviously before that there was Frank Mir, but I'm on about like the circa 2013 heavyweight division. Like, it's got better since like a decade ago. The heavyweight division's as good as it's ever been. Like, there's always only been 3-4 top level heavyweights at a time, and we've got them now. We've got Alexander Volkov, Cyril Gane, Tom Aspinall, John Jones. You know what I mean? I think Volkov's a top heavyweight. He's shown that in his performances. He's probably give Tom Aspinall one of his hardest fights. He actually did struggle to get him on the feet. He had to get him to the ground to get that win. So his Sergey Pavlovich fight, I thought that was really, really disciplined. I like that he didn't rush. And I've got to go with a similar kind of thing here. People forget that in his fight against Cyril Gane, he won the first 2 rounds in that fight, but it was a 5-rounder. This is a 3-round fight. If he wins them first 2 rounds, that's it, he's won. So I'm going with that. I think it's going to be a decision for Volkov. Volkov's going to start quicker, more urgent. Cyril Gane's going to be picking and trying to get him, and it's just going to be the urgency of Volkov and the work rate. So Alexander Volkov, decision, 3-round, probably a pretty average fight. I can't see it being one of the fights of the night, but I do think it's going to be exciting simply because in a heavyweight fight, one shot could change everything. So you're always on the edge of your seat anywhere. But yeah, I think Volkov's going to get the decision. Probably a 29-28. I think he'll win the first 2 rounds as he did in the last one. Then Garner will get a bit more urgent because he's a bit of a slow starter. Moving on. Co-main event. Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Ian Machado Cookie. Gary. Now, I'm not an Ian Gary fan at all. I think he's a very, very boring fighter. I think he ain't got any star potential at all. I mean, he had the biggest chance a year ago after all the stuff about the Layla situation of actually becoming a name. He got a gift, as he said in one of his press conferences before when he said with that Neil Magny thing about his kids, it was like a nugget of gold. He had that nugget of gold to be a star with all the hype behind the Layla situation, and he even messed that up and didn't end up fighting on that card. And it was clear that he was lying about reasons with those photos where he had the same pair of socks on for the apparent full weekend. It was bullshit. He wasn't wanting to fight because the pressure got too much, and I think the same's going to happen in this fight. But Ian Gary, I just think he's really boring in and out the cage. He's got no kind of aura at all. He's just not going to be able to win this fight. Shavkat, forget the skills for a second. Just forget looking at this fight as skill versus skill. For a second, just look at it as man versus man. If you're looking at two guys fighting, who are you picking in that fight? Shavkat Rakhmonov, an absolute monster who finishes people and chokes them to near whatever you want to say, just chokes them unconscious. Or Ian Gary, who picks at range against Jeff Neal and gets a split decision. I mean, you might be thinking, I know where he's going with this prediction, but I'm going to do a massive turn here. I'm going to absolutely swerve it up. I think Ian Gary's going to win this fight. Now, I know that sounds crazy and I've just said all of these things, but Ian Gary is deluded. I was watching a video of Ian Gary and he was talking about how his performances were better than than Shavkat's against two mutual opponents in Neil Magny and Jeff Neal. Both them fights Shavkat finishes. Both of Ian Gary's fights against the same opponents went to decision. One of them was a split decision. But the grin on Gary's face and the delusion leads me to believe he is a psychopath. He had this grin on his face. It was amusing to watch. Gary was it was like the Jamal Hill situation where he was walking up to Pereira with all that confidence, and you think, where do you get all that confidence from after getting knocked out by him? It's like that with Ian Gary. None of his performances should give him this confidence that he has. He got knocked down against Song Kanan in that fight, nearly got finished. Got a finish at the end of the third round in that one, saved it. Had a boring fight against Jeff Neal, what went to split decision, which I do think he won, but it could have been given the other way. And his best performance was probably a Daniel Rodriguez head kick KO. And that's one of his only highlight reel. That's the only thing on Ian Gary's highlight reel, that knockout. But I say all that to say, Ian Gary has got better striking than Shavkat Rakhmonov. Jeff Neal had the power, so that was scaring Ian Gary, and that's why he put on a performance like that. Shavkat actually doesn't have the slickest striking, and he doesn't have crazy power with his hands. He has some good kicks. He has great fence work. He can throw elbows, throw knees, but he's just not that scary on the feet. They call him the boogeyman. Even Khamzat Chimaev, he's a boogeyman of his division, but he has decent striking, that makes it where do I go with this? You saw it in the Gilbert Burns fight. Shavkat's never looked like a world beater on the feet. The Wonderboy Thompson was a dud performance until the finish in the end of the second round. That was an old Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Ian Gary's a younger version of that. Obviously not the karate style, but good striker, keeps distance well. I can see Ian Gary barfesting his way to a win here. I think it's going to be a boring fight. I think it's going to be one of those fights where we probably say afterwards we don't want to see Ian Gary fight for the title because he's just going to stink fest and bar the division if he wins the belt. But I think he's just going to have the superior striking. I think he's going to keep distance well enough so Shavkat don't get in them positions to get him against the fence or to smother him. And I really do think Ian Garry's going to win, which I can't believe I'm saying. And I'm going to hate watching every second of it. But my underdog pick for this card, as you know, I like to give you guys an underdog pick, is Ian Garry to beat Shavkat Rakhmonov by decision. And if there's some kind of betting option where you can pick what's going to be the most boring fight of the night, which I don't know what your betting company provides, do it for this one. But Ian Garry, decision, I think it's going to be close-ish, but I do think it's going to be a clear Ian Garry 3-2 over the 5 rounds. Moving on to the main event. Alexandra Pantoja, or Alejandro versus Kai Asakura. Now, Kai Asakura has been absolutely mogging this week in the media. He's been looking like the most confident guy in the world. And I've got to say, I've been missing this in the flyweight division. We haven't got any aura. And I feel like Kai Asakura as a champion would be like a real life fucking anime character. But I think that Pantoja is getting so overlooked in this fight. And it's because the UFC want us to overlook him, because the UFC are pushing the Asakura hype train. The UFC want us to think Asakura is the next big thing. But don't fall for it, guys. He's beaten some decent names in Rising. Most of them are Chinese. So they're all, I don't know why I'm saying that. That sounds a bit sus, like I'm being a bit stereotypical. But they are Muay Thai fighters. You know, they are Asian, sorry, not Chinese, being racist. Japanese. But they are Muay Thai based fighters. So it's basically been striking matchups. He hasn't faced any wrestlers in Rising. It's a completely different style matchup. And I'm telling you, after this fight, you are going to feel stupid for not thinking this. It's not going to be an easy night. But I do think that Pantoja has got all the tools to win this fight. The wrestling and the mixing up of the striking and the wrestling, which is something I love. A lot of people hate on Merab. I thought his performance against Sean O'Malley was actually amazing. I know MMA coaches that needs to the fight. But I thought that there was a lot more to it than that. That mixing of the arts is what people watch. And I don't want to sound like MMA Joey because he's just a fat retard, but I do think that it's going to be a great performance by Pantoja, and it's going to look a lot like the Merab Sean O'Malley performance, except at flyweight. So there's going to be a bit more speed, a bit more transitions on a quicker, maybe more fast, you know, right? Like you know, like when you see the transitions in the Royval Terra fight, I'm seeing that kind of fight. So not quite the Merab O'Malley fight, but maybe like more of the Royval Terra fight, which was one of my favourite fights this year and an underrated fight of the year contender. So yeah, I think it's going to be that type of fight. Transitions, mixture of all the arts, stand up, fast strike, and probably a lot of leg kicks, because I feel like Pantoja is one of the better leg kickers in the flyweight division, and they're going to be coming in fast, getting whipped in, while Asakura's going in with his lead hand to go and land them jabs and to land shots on the, you know, forward momentum. He's not going to be staying back trying to get Pantoja to come in. He's not a counter striker. He's not a quick counter puncher. Asakura, he likes to be aggressive, and a lot of his finishes have come with illegal techniques anyway. So he's going to get beat here. I think Pantoja for the 5-round classic. I think it's going to be the fight of the night. As I said earlier, that could also be the Landwehr Choi fight, but I think this fight's going to be a treat, and I think it's going to be like a higher level Royval versus whatever his name is, Tyra. Okay, so I think it's going to be a higher level version of that fight. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the card, guys. I'm really looking forward to this one. Like and subscribe. Bye bye.